Germany has a fantastic collection of roller coasters with some truly world-class rides. Narrowing down all their great coasters to just 10 has been pretty hard, but I've now come up with my list of the top 10 roller coasters in all of Germany. Number 10. Wodan at Europa Park. Wodan is the newest wooden roller coaster in Germany, and it delivers a fast-paced, intense and twisty ride that has this great out-of-control feeling. The speed sensation is one of the best parts, as you zip through tunnels and over dips, whilst the wooden track flies past just inches away from you. There's some really fun bouncy airtime to be had during the ride, and you'll almost certainly leave it with a smile on your face. Interestingly, its name isn't derived from a German spelling of Wodan, but from the Germanic version of the Norse god Odin, which helps to explain the amazing theming within the queue line. Seriously, this is one of the most impressive queue lines I've been in, with some really cool scenes and projection mapping effects that really bring it to life. Number 9. Blue Fire at Europa Park. Blue Fire is a bit of a landmark coaster for its constructor Mack Rides, as it was not only their first launch coaster, but also their first coaster to feature inversions. One of the most revolutionary things about this ride, though, are the trains, which were comfy and supportive without the need for over-the-shoulder restraints, offering a much greater sense of freedom than on similar rides. The ride is located in the Icelandic section of Europa Park, and has some really nice interactions with the scenery and rockwork, as well as a bit of a dark ride section prior to the launch that I think is meant to represent a natural gas facility. The launch isn't the most forceful I've experienced, but it's still good fun, and the rest of the layout is just great, with a huge vertical loop providing hang time, 3 other floaty inversions, and a few pops of airtime as the train twists and turns through the course. Amazingly, the ride can also run up to 5 trains at the same time, meaning the queue line is always moving quickly. Blue Fire is simply great fun, and very re-rideable, which may explain why it's had multiple clones of it built around the world. Number 8. Carajo at Tripsdrill. Carajo, which I may be mispronouncing, is a fantastic if somewhat underrated ride. This compact Gerstlauer infinity coaster wastes no time once the ride begins, as it starts with an inversion in the dark before you're launched into a twisted top hat element that gives some good airtime and a nice view of the park. The next element I've seen described as a dive loop, but to me it's more like an absolutely massive corkscrew, and it's a really fun inversion to experience, especially as the trains have clamshell restraints rather than over-the-shoulder ones. The rest of the ride is packed with more twists and turns, some airtime hills, and 2 further inversions before it's all over and you hit the brakes. It's not the biggest coaster in the world, but for its size it definitely packs a punch, and was a great addition to the park. Carajo is also one of my personal milestone coasters, as when I first rode it back in 2015, it became my 300th coaster, and it's really kind of crazy to think that since then, I've ridden over 600 others, but I still think Carajo is great, and worthy of a spot in this top 10. Number 7. Silver Star at Europa Park. Silver Star is currently the joint 4th tallest roller coaster in Europe, but when it was built in 2002, it held the number 1 spot and maintained that record for over a decade. When I first rode this coaster, however, I remember feeling really quite underwhelmed by it, as there seemed to be hardly any airtime when compared to the coaster that beat its height record, Shambhala. In more recent years, however, this coaster has turned into a fantastic fun airtime machine, as they've modified the trims in it, so now every hill gives some wonderful floaty sustained airtime, which is exactly what you expect from a B&M hypercoaster. I'd previously have rated this as my least favourite of the B&M hypercoasters, but having ridden it in more recent years, it's a far better ride than before, and just as good as many of the others. The end of the ride is a bit special too, as there's a bit of a flourish with a really fun fast chicane that you twist through before you hit the brakes. It may no longer be a record holder, but it's still a fantastic ride, and all the better since it was modified. Number 6. Fluch von Novgorod at Hansa Park. Fluch von Novgorod is a really unique Gerstlauer Eurofighter that packs in a lot of different things into just one ride. I'd go as far as to say it's more of an overall experience than just a roller coaster, and that experience begins as soon as you enter the queue line, where at the corner of your eye you may spot some creepy scarecrows moving just ever so subtly, enough to make you feel slightly uneasy. The interior of the ride is full of little details as well that you'll notice while you wait, and once you're actually sat on the ride proper, it begins with a dark ride section. As you leave the station, the ride stops and you experience a scene involving a singing ghost before you turn past some spooky hooded figures, and then suddenly there's a drop and you're hit with this really intense launch that catapults you to over 60 miles an hour in just 1.4 seconds. Straight after the launch, you're into a big airtime hill that leads into some twisty track and an inversion before you hit the brakes, but the ride isn't over yet. The next part takes you up an enclosed vertical lift hill into a beyond vertical drop in pitch darkness where you can't see a thing as the ride twists through the final section of track at high speed and you return to the station. The ride experience still isn't over though, as once you get off, there's an optional slide to go down and a maze to go through before you finally find your way to the exit. It's unlike any other roller coaster, and is wonderfully unique, but the best part is definitely that launch, which is some of the strongest acceleration on any roller coaster in the world. Number 5, Colossos at Heide Park. Colossos certainly lives up to its name. This enormous wooden coaster is truly a sight to behold, and looks simply stunning, especially now that it's got a new theme where the train is eaten by some sort of fiery tree beast. It does take a bit of time to warm up compared to other intimate wooden coasters, but once it does, you get an amazing sustained ejector airtime over the hills, and it's really a joy to ride. It features a very traditional out and back style layout, so the ride really is all about that airtime and speed, and it's definitely one of the best wooden coasters in Europe. Unfortunately, the ride was a bit neglected by the park for several years, and it became increasingly rough, eventually reaching the point where it was forced to stay closed for nearly 3 years, but thankfully, the ride was resurrected with a full retrack so it could reopen in 2019, and now it's much smoother, particularly in the helix, which was rather unpleasant before. Its new theme is clearly inspired by Alton Towers' Wicker Man, but adding fire effects to a roller coaster is never a bad idea, and it's undoubtedly increased the ride's appeal. It's a great coaster. Number 4, Black Mamba at Phantasialand. It's no surprise to see Black Mamba near the top of this list, as it's my favourite inverted coaster in the world, and it's a great example of how landscaping can really improve a ride. The African theme has plenty of details, but it's how the ride dives through all these valleys and trenches that make it really special. The sense of speed you get as the ground and walls rush past you is just spectacular, and the ride keeps up a blistering pace from the first drop all the way until the end, where you fly around a corner into pitch darkness as you hit the brakes. Inverted coasters are at their best when they stay close to the ground, and this coaster is a perfect example of that. The ride feels fast for the whole course, and the couple of inversions it has are really snappy. It has phenomenal pacing, and any time I'm visiting Phantasialand, I'll always try and get a front row seat on Black Mamba, as it's just such a good coaster experience. Number 3, Expedition Geforce at Holiday Park. For many years, Expedition Geforce duked it out in polls as the #1 coaster not just in Germany, but in the entire world. Whilst it's moved down in rankings as more modern rides have been built, it's still undeniably a magnificent coaster. I think that the twisted first drop in the back seat is still one of the best drops on any coaster in the world, as it really sends you flying, and the airtime hill that follows delivers sustained ejector air in a way only Intamin coasters can. The rest of the ride is a few overbanks and twists as it goes above the trees, but the ride really is all about that airtime, and the trip back to the station is just a barrage of ejector airtime hills, one after another, and it's just so much fun. You'll want to ride this coaster over and over again, and that's not just because there isn't many other coasters in the park, it's because Expedition Geforce is an amazing world-class coaster, and certainly one of the best in Germany. Number 2, Karnan at Hansa Park. Karnan is an amazing coaster that's truly unique. The theming is top-notch, and the giant tower containing the vertical lift is certainly impressive, as it stands taller than any other roller coaster in Germany. The ride has a couple of tricks up its sleeve, which I won't spoil here, but suffice to say the section inside the tower has been known to unnerve even seasoned coaster enthusiasts. Once you reach the top, you plunge down a drop of over 200 feet before you hit the outdoor section of the ride, which is a wonderfully twisty mess of steel track. The first element is unlike anything found on other roller coasters, almost like a non-inverting butterfly, and it's great to be experiencing these twisty track sections when you're up so high in the air. The rest of the ride stays low to the ground at high speed, and there's some good pops of airtime whilst you ride that make for simply brilliant pacing. Add to that an amazing soundtrack and another detailed queue line, and it becomes simply a wonderful ride. It's very close to being the top ride in Germany, if it wasn't for number 1, Taron at Phantasialand. Taron is simply a phenomenal coaster, with theming at a level unmatched by any other park. The ride is insanely twisty, has a good variety of forces, and the second launch is simply breathtaking, feeling like someone's just hit a hyperspeed button as you experience the fastest second launch in the world. The sheer amount of track crammed into the area is quite the feat of engineering, and the way the track crosses over and under and around itself is unlike any other ride. Taron is an expertly paced, wonderful ride that really took the park to a new level, and is just so much fun to ride. There's an incredible amount of detail in the theming that has to be seen to be believed, and it's even better when seen at night. The way the area is lit and the added smoke and lighting effects mean that a night ride on Taron is an unforgettable experience, and that's why to me it's the #1 coaster in Germany. So there we have it, the top 10 roller coasters in Germany. Let me know which one you'd most like to ride in the comments, and stay tuned for more videos from me in the future. I've been Rollercoaster David, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again in another video very soon.